So today I just want to talk about what got me interested and what's kept me going in this photography business that I've been doing for the last couple of years. There's been basically 4 or 5 major events in my life that have made me into who I am. The first event happened. I was 7 years old. It went for about a year or so, 6 months. I don't know exactly how long, but it culminated with us landing in Canada on November 30th, back in 1983. My parents decided that they no longer wanted to live under communism in a communist state. We came to Canada from Czechoslovakia back in '83. My parents took myself and my 3 younger brothers on a vacation because back then we couldn't escape, or we couldn't just, leave easily. My parents would end up in jail, and we'd end up, in foster care, or my dad would end up in jail, and my mom would be basically unemployable, taking care of 4 kids, and taking care of 4 kids. Nobody would hire her. She'd be declared a traitor to the state, and blah blah blah. But anyway, that was the first event. I remember it because back then Czechoslovakia didn't have color television, and we only had like maybe 3 or 4 channels, and they were all state-run. It was all state-run propaganda. America and the West is bad. Communism in Russia the best in the world, and yada yada yada. So my parents decided to leave and move to either Canada, Australia, or the United States. They decided, to move here to Canada, specifically Ottawa, or that's where the government wanted us to move, and we've been here ever since. Excuse me. The second event that got me in travel, this was probably the first event that got me interested in astronomy and photography. My dad and a friend of his took my brother and I up to Algonquin Park, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours northwest of Ottawa, for a camping trip for a couple of days. I remember bitching and complaining about having to carry, all our supplies. Like my brother and I would carry all the supplies while my dad and his friend would carry the canoe with a few other things. But it was a good trip, about 3 or 4 days long. I don't remember exactly how long, but I remember catching my first fish. It was a bigmouth bass, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I cast my line towards what looked like a beaver dam, and I felt a few tugs on the line. I'm like, I think I got something. And my dad's like, nah, you're probably caught in the beaver dam, some of the logs or trees or whatever that were submerged underwater. And then I remember the bigmouth bass just, jumped, cleared the water, and I remember it was like slow motion, and felt like it lasted an hour, just the fish jumping out of the water. And it's like, my dad's like, holy shit, you got something. So I reeled it in, got on land, got home, and I don't know, I think my dad or mom skinned it and put it in the fridge or refrigerator or freezer, and there it sat uneaten for at least, I don't know, however long, but never got to eat it. another thing I remember from that trip is the night. My dad and his friend took my brother and I to the beach, and it was a clear night, no humidity, nothing, right? And no moon, so it was all just the stars. And I swear to this day that you could read by the starlight. There were so many stars. It was totally unbelievable. And that's probably the night that got me interested in, astronomy and at some point photography. I got my first camera was a Minolta film camera back then. I think I got it in 87 or 88. I was 12 or 13. My dad got it for me for my birthday. I remember going to the mall, one of the malls over on the Gatineau side, because that was the only place, I think it was a Sears, that you could get it at. The reason I got that camera was because I saw it in one of the little pamphlet books that RASC, the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, mailed out to its members once a month. I got my dad to get me a membership. I think it was like $10-15 at the time to the RASC, and I remember standing against my mom's car in the driveway. I didn't have a tripod back then. I started taking pictures of the night sky. I don't think they turned out really well. I don't even remember using it off of automatic. But yeah, that was my first camera that I got. The fourth event that really, this is the third event. This happened. I started taking photography classes at Algonquin in April of 2010, and I wanted to go do an assignment for another class in October for another class at Algonquin. And I remember, going there, meeting up with a few other friends who brought models and blah blah blah. And I remember coming home, I guess about 6 or 7 at night, and I had to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom, did my business, had to scratch, and that's when I noticed that one of the guys one of the testicles was way bigger than the other. It was the size of a grape. And I didn't notice it in the morning. I had to go pee too, and I didn't notice it. It was nothing, out of the ordinary. So I did some research. It was either liquid in a sac, or some sort of virus, or it was cancer. If it was water, it would have gone away eventually. If it was virus, I would have had to have gotten some pills to get rid of it, or in my case it was testicular cancer. So I didn't tell anybody for a couple of weeks, or I didn't tell my family. I booked an appointment first with my doctor, told my now ex-wife what was going on. After, I think a week after my doctor's appointment, or a week or two, I had surgery, removed the cancerous testicle, and I remember driving home from surgery, and they called us back because they wanted to do more testing, and we told them that we're about halfway home. Can we schedule another appointment? And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem, blah blah blah. And so we got home. I went to bed because I went to watch TV because I was pretty tired. It was a Wednesday, I remember, that I had my first surgery. The following day, I got a phone call from my employer saying that my services were no longer required. The day before my surgery, my boss was like, "Yeah, take your time." And I'm like, "You know what? I'm gonna be back on Monday. I don't foresee any, complications, whatnot. I'll be back Monday." But yeah, Thursday, got a phone call saying, "Yeah, your services are no longer required." So from then, they called me back several times asking, "Can you come work for us?" I'm like, "No. You know what? You treat me this way at my lowest. No, I'm not gonna work for you at all. You're not worth it." But yeah, so 2011, I had to deal with chemo. I was still going to school. My worst day, I remember this. Every joint, every bone in my body hurt, and I was in pain just walking or sitting or breathing. But I managed to pull through that day. Took whatever needed photography I needed to pass my class, and I think that's one reason why I stuck with photography. I'm all clear. They cleared me of cancer back in 2015, so I don't have to go back to the hospital to get a check. I had a second surgery back in 2011 because the cancer worked its way up into my lymph nodes around my spine, or behind my stomach. So I spent 12 hours on the table while they removed all the cancerous lymph nodes. I spent 5 or 7 days in the hospital. They tried to kick me out after the third day. I'm like, "No, I'm not ready to go home." I had my operation August 28th or 29th of 2011. I spent 5 or 7 days in the hospital, and then I had to spend a month at home recovering. I couldn't drive. They took my license away. So yeah, I spent a month home. I think by my birthday, which was a week or so after I got home on September 7th, I was like, "Nope, I need to get out. I'm going stir crazy. There's nothing for me to do at home." Luckily, I had my dog back then, and she kept me company. She was the best thing that ever happened to me. But yeah, that was probably the low point of my life back then. And in 2015, I got divorced from my wife, or my ex-wife now. There was a whole lot of things that happened between 2011 and 2015. Culminated in 2014. I'm like, "No, I'm done. I can't do this anymore." As a couple, we're supposed to, support each other, blah blah blah. She was more interested in hanging around with her sisters and mommy and daddy. To me, I'm like more independent. I don't need to, go see my parents every week, let alone her parents. But I'd rather do stuff, visit or go see new places. But yeah, in 2015, got my divorce, and the only thing that kept me going then is, the camera. I had a couple Canon 60s at that point, and I was visiting Park Omega like at least once a week, because I'm more of an animal type guy than people type guy. That's why I shoot landscapes and wildlife and whatnot. But yeah, so it's 2020 now, and we're stuck under in house arrest again because of this COVID. Luckily, we're in stage 2 here in Ontario. They're opening up a lot more, and I think they're going to close everything down again in September, October because of whatever. They're stupid, totally stupid with this thing. So back in March, employer government just shut down all the departments. Whatever was not necessary wasn't getting done, which included my job. It's why I'm starting this YouTube channel. I would rather work for myself, do this, and do this more than a hobby or amateur or part-time professional where, I make some of my money from photography. I'd rather make all of my money from photography. I want to go full-time and do this for the rest of my life because I enjoy it. It got me through a lot in the last 10 years, and I think it will get me through this coronavirus BS. If, some people I know don't like me going doing photography full time, it's up to me. It's my choice. So, you either support me or you don't. So we'll see you guys later in the next one.